Mr. Rohrabacher, for 30 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have a policy in my office that every time anyone from my district actually comes to the Capitol, they have a right to see me and talk to me, especially young people. And I have, over the years, seen hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of young people from my home district in Southern California. And I let them talk to me and ask any questions that they would like to ask. And, you know, I have a question that I always ask them. And I thought it would be interesting for my colleagues and perhaps any of those who are watching C-SPAN or reading this in the congressional record to know that the answer that I get from when I ask a question of the young high school students from my district. Mr. Speaker, when our kids come in to my office and are talking to me, I note that I was actually in high school in Southern California 47 years ago. And I always ask the kids, is the air better quality today, or is it worse today than when I was going to high school in Southern California 47 years ago? And 90% of the students over the years who I've asked that question to have had exactly the wrong answer. Their answer is, oh, you were so lucky to live at a time when the air quality in Southern California and around the nation was so good. And what's so terrible that we have to put up today with air quality that's killing us. And they've been told that the air quality when I was in high school was so much better than it is today, which is 180 degrees wrong. But this is a general attitude among today's young people because our young people are being lied to. They are intentionally being given misinformation. Now, their teachers may not be intentionally lying to them, but their teachers may be are given information from scientists and other sources that is an exact lie from people who know that, yes, the air quality back when I went to school, and I go into description about how the air quality was so bad at times we couldn't even go out in the playground. They wouldn't even let us out of the classroom onto the sports field because the air was so bad. Today that happens maybe once a year or twice a year in Southern California. Back then it happened once a week at times during the summer and during the school year. So our kids have this view that their generation is being poisoned, and they're willing to accept stringent measures in order to protect the environment that will take away a great deal of the opportunity that they should have in their lives in order to correct this horrible problem that they're told that they've got. Well, when I tell them it's just the opposite, they're so surprised. Well, the truth is our nation's environment is no longer the disaster that it was 50 years ago. And 50 years ago, we did have a problem. 50 years ago, I remember that when my dad was a Marine down in Quantico, when I was a child, I came up here several times, and my dad would say, whatever you do, don't put your finger in the Potomac River, your finger will fall off. Well, it wasn't quite that bad, but it was really bad. We've made tremendous progress over the years in the Potomac River, and I can't help but notice there are people water skiing and sailing and doing and fishing in the Potomac now. Well, we don't live in the same time of 50 years ago. The air today has never been cleaner than at any time in my lifetime. The water has never been cleaner at any time in my lifetime than it is today. And I am hopeful that my children will never have to experience the pollution that was rampant when I was their age. So let's take a look and give credit where credit's due. That progress is, in large part, because of the efforts of the government, well, and the EPA, yes, which came in under President Nixon, and others who have used science to fight for environmental reforms and to improve the quality of life of our people. And while I am thankful, I also would like to heed the warning that President Eisenhower left with us in his farewell address, and I quote, that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific technological elite, end of quote. He was warning us about government-funded research becoming so intertwined with public policy and the creation of regulations, it would compromise the integrity of both. Well, in recent years, we've seen political agendas being driven by scientific-sounding claims being used to frighten the general public again and again and again. An unjustified fear has been used, for example, to ban DDT. I remember when I was a kid, I used to run through these clouds of DDT, again when my father was in the military down in North Carolina. And yes, it was killing millions of mosquitoes in North Carolina, but when they banned that DDT, and I seem to remember that it had something to do with the thickness of shells of certain birds. Well, they banned DDT, and because of that, we have had millions of deaths due to malaria in Africa. Millions of young African children who, because they don't have a good diet, succumb to a disease like malaria and die because of it. These children are dead, make no mistake about it, because we were frightened into an irrational position on DDT, banning that, and thus destroying the lives of millions of children in the third world. We've seen alarmism with the population bomb. Remember that in 1968, a book claiming that increasing populations and decreasing agricultural yields would lead to cannibalism and global warfare over scarce resources by the mid-1970s. Yeah, and here we are a long way from the 1970s, and I'm afraid Malthus, 150 years ago, who started this type of scarism, was wrong, wrong, wrong. And there are a lot of scientists, unfortunately, who are right now who are molding themselves after the Malthus that were made 150 years ago. Today's environmental alarmists use faulty and, in some cases, deceitful computer models to prove that the world is being destroyed one way or the other. Quite often, and the ones they're using in the last 10 years, of course, was the world is being destroyed by man-made carbon emissions. And this is proven by their computer models, even though the Earth has seen significantly higher atmospheric carbon levels many times before, and those were not necessarily bad times for this planet. But those computer models were suggesting because of carbon emissions, we were going to face a catastrophe. And in fact, I remember very well the predictions of 10 and 15 years ago that by now we would have reached a tipping point in the temperature of the world. And it would go, and we'd have reached a temperature about now, and then it would go up and 5 to 10 degrees, a big jump. Well, we haven't seen that big jump. The alarmists, of course, are not interested in when they make mistakes, and they're not really interested in solving real problems. They are part of a coalition that wants to change our way of life. That's their goal. The goal isn't to, with their computerization showing that just horrible times are ahead of us unless we change. The idea isn't to stop those horrible times, because those horrible times are just a product of what they put into their computers. And of course, we all know what garbage in, garbage out means. If you put into a computer that you're going to have some kind of disaster, that's what you're going to get out of your computer. But what they have in mind, of course, is they want to change the way of life, our life, which requires us to acquiesce.